The large viewing window on the bridge of the spaceship showed a vast sea of stars. Captain Jun Kim stood with his hands behind his back, watching as the alien ship moved closer. The ship was 3 times bigger than his own vessel, the United Earth Alliance flagship called Dauntless. After 5 years of tense relations between humans and the alien race known as Talons, the two sides had finally agreed to work together. A dangerous sickness called the Void Plague was spreading across many star systems, threatening both human and Talon worlds. "It feels strange, doesn't it?" said Lieutenant Min Day, standing next to her captain. "Working with them after all this time." June nodded. "Strange but necessary. The Void Plague doesn't care about our differences." Min looked at the approaching ship with worry in her eyes. "Do you think they'll respect us this time?" June sighed. Since humans had first met other alien races 20 years ago, they had struggled to gain respect. Humans were seen as newcomers, too young and too weak to deserve a place among the older spacefaring races. The Talons, with their 4 arms and natural armor, had been the most open about their feelings. "We'll earn their respect through our actions," June said firmly. "Remember why we're here." The ship's communication system beeped. "Captain," came the voice of Officer Lee from the docking control room. "The Talon ship has connected to our main airlock. Their delegation is ready to board." "Thank you, Officer Lee. We'll meet them in the main conference room." June straightened his blue uniform and brushed a piece of lint from his sleeve. First impressions mattered, especially with the proud Talons. "Lieutenant Day, please gather." The senior staff. 10 minutes later, June stood at the head of the large oval table in the conference room. Behind him hung the flag of the United Earth Alliance, a blue circle with white stars representing humanity's home system. 5 of his most trusted officers stood in a line beside him. When the doors slid open, June had to stop himself from showing surprise. The Talons were even more impressive in person than in the videos he had seen. General Krex, the leader of the Talon forces, ducked his head to enter the human-sized doorway. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, the alien had gray-blue skin that looked almost like metal. 4 muscular arms emerged from his torso, and a ridge of bony plates ran from the top of his head down his back. Behind him came 12 Talon soldiers, each wearing armor that glowed with soft blue light. "Captain Kim," General Krex said, his deep voice filling the room. His mouth moved strangely around the human words. "Your ship is quaint." Several of the Talon soldiers made clicking sounds that June recognized as laughter. "General Krex," June replied with a bow of his head. "Welcome aboard the Dauntless. We are honored to host this historic meeting." Krex did not return the gesture. Instead, he walked around the room examining the human technology with his 4 large eyes. "So this is the best ship in the human fleet?" he asked. "It seems, fragile." One of the Talon soldiers spoke up. "Like its crew." June kept his face calm despite the insult. "The Dauntless may not match Talon ships in size or firepower, but she has never failed her mission. Please, let's sit and discuss our joint operation." The meeting that followed was tense. As they discussed plans to contain the Void Plague, the Talons continuously questioned human capabilities. "The Void entities can take over a ship in minutes," said Krex, pointing to a map of infected areas. "They attack the mind first, then the body. How will your fragile human brains resist such attacks?" "We have developed mental shields," June explained, bringing up data on his tablet. "And our scientists have created medicines that can slow the infection." A Talon officer named Varn leaned forward. "But your species lacks even basic physical advantages. No regenerative abilities, no proper armor, no secondary organs, no notable strength." He looked around at the human officers. "How exactly did you survive long enough to reach space?" Lieutenant Day's face flushed with anger, but June placed a calming hand on her arm. "We survived through adaptation and innovation, Officer Varn," June replied evenly. "Humans may lack physical advantages, but we have other strengths." "Such as?" asked Krex, his tone making it clear he didn't believe there were any. Before June could answer, Commander Suk Park, his second-in-command, spoke. "Our history, for one. Humans have faced extinction many times and always found a way to continue. The Talons exchanged looks of doubt. After 2 hours of planning, they finally agreed on a basic strategy. 3 mixed teams of humans and Talons would patrol the border of the infected zone. If they found ships affected by the Void Plague, they would either cleanse them or destroy them if necessary. As the meeting ended, General Krex approached June privately. "Captain, I must be honest. I do not believe humans are ready for this fight. The Void Plague destroyed 2 of our colonies before we could contain it. Your species has never faced anything like it." June met the alien's four-eyed gaze steadily. "With respect, General, there's much you don't know about humanity and what we've endured." Krex made that clicking sound again. "Your confidence is admirable but misplaced. I have agreed to this joint mission because my leaders ordered it, but I will not risk Talon lives needlessly. Your people will follow our lead in all combat situations." After the Talons left the conference room, Lieutenant Day could no longer contain her frustration. "How can we work with them when they treat us like children?" she demanded. June looked at his gathered officers. "They judge us by their standards, not ours. The Talons evolved as apex predators on their world. Their society has been stable for thousands of years. They never had to adapt the way humans did." "But sir," said Officer Lee, "they're right about our physical limitations. In direct combat, this isn't just about physical strength." June interrupted. "The Void Plague attacks the mind as much as the body, and human minds have been tested in ways the Talons can't imagine." He looked out the window at the massive Talon ship connected to his own. "Give them time," he said. "Soon enough, they'll see what humans are truly capable of." Later that night, as June reviewed the mission details in his quarters, there was a knock at his door. When it opened, he was surprised to see Sergeant Han, the oldest member of his crew. The 65-year-old veteran's face was lined with age and scars from humanity's first interstellar conflict, the Resource Wars. He walked with a slight limp from an old injury. "Captain," Han said with a respectful nod, "may I speak with you?" "Of course, Sergeant. What's on your mind?" Han's weathered face was serious. "I've been listening to the Talons talk about humans. They think we're weak because we lack their physical abilities." June nodded. "I know, but they'll learn." A small smile crossed Han's face. "Yes, they will, but they might learn faster if they knew the truth about humanity's greatest strength." "Which is?" June asked, curious about the old veteran's thoughts. "Our greatest strength, Captain? It's that we've survived ourselves all these years." Han's eyes held a haunting knowledge that June recognized from other veterans. "The Talons fear this Void Plague, but humans have been fighting our own inner darkness since we first picked up stones as weapons." June considered the sergeant's words. "You may be right, Sergeant Han. Perhaps it's time the Talons learned exactly what makes humanity so resilient." Outside the ship, the stars continued their silent watch as the joint mission prepared to face an enemy that fed on fear and weakness. Unaware that one species had been training to resist such threats since the dawn of their civilization. 3 weeks had passed since the Talon delegation arrived on the Dauntless. The large human spaceship now moved along the edge of the infected zone, where the Void Plague had been spreading from system to system. Captain June Kim walked through the training area, watching as human and Talon soldiers practiced together. He frowned at what he saw. The training was not going well. In one corner, 4 Talon soldiers easily defeated a team of 6 humans in a combat simulation. The aliens moved with incredible speed, their forearms allowing them to use multiple weapons at once. Their natural armor deflected most of the practice shots. "Too slow," said Varn, the Talon officer who seemed to enjoy mocking humans the most. "If this were a real fight, you would all be dead." Lieutenant Minday picked herself up from the floor, her face red with anger and effort. "The simulation settings favor your natural abilities," she said. "In a real situation you would still lose," Varn interrupted. "Accept your limitations, human." June stepped forward before Min could respond. "Officer Varn, Lieutenant Day, that's enough for today. Your teams have been training for 5 hours straight." Varn made the clicking sound that June now recognized as Talon laughter. My warriors could continue for another 10 hours without rest. Can yours? Without waiting for an answer, Varn led his team away. The human soldiers glared at their backs. Permission to speak freely, sir? Min asked once the Talons were out of earshot. Go ahead, Lieutenant. This isn't working. The Talons don't respect us or our abilities. They treat every exercise like a competition they need to win, not like training for a real threat. June nodded. I've noticed. But remember why we're here. The Void Plague doesn't care about our pride. It's not about pride, sir, Min replied. It's about trust. How can we fight together if they think we're useless? Later that day, June sat in the ship's mess hall watching the divide between the two species. Humans ate at tables on one side of the room, while Talons gathered on the other. There was no mixing, no conversation between the groups. May I join? You, Captain? June looked up to see Sergeant Han standing beside his table, tray in hand. The old veteran's face showed the weariness of the intense training schedule. Please do, Sergeant. Han sat down slowly, his artificial leg making a soft, whirring sound as he bent it. He had lost the original leg during the Resource Wars, humanity's first major conflict with another species. The Talons don't think much of us, Han said, keeping his voice low. No, they don't. June agreed. Their physical advantages give them confidence, maybe too much confidence. Han took a bite of his food, chewing thoughtfully. They don't understand humans. They see our weakness but miss our strength. Before June could ask what Han meant, a group of Talon soldiers entered the mess hall. Among them was General Krex, his tall frame standing out even among his own kind. As the aliens collected their food and found seats, Krex noticed June and Han. After a moment's hesitation, he walked over to their table. Captain Kim, Krex said, with a small nod. I wish to discuss the patrol schedule. Of course, General, please join us. Krex sat down, his forearms carefully arranging his food tray. He glanced at Han, noting the veteran's age and obvious artificial limb. Is it common for humans to keep elderly warriors in active service? Krex asked. June felt Han stiffen beside him. Sergeant Han is one of our most experienced soldiers. His knowledge is valuable to our mission. Krex studied Han with his 4 eyes. Experience is useful, but physical capability is essential in combat. The Void entities will not be gentle with those who cannot keep pace. I've kept pace with worse, Han said calmly. The Resource Wars taught me that survival isn't always about strength. The Talon general made a dismissive gesture with one of his lower arms. The Resource Wars. We have studied your conflict with the Meraxian traders. A minor skirmish by galactic standards. Han's face remained neutral, but June could see a fire in the old man's eyes. Minor to you, perhaps. Not to those who fought in it. Krex turned his attention back to June. Captain, after observing your crew's performance, I believe humans would be better suited to support roles rather than direct combat against Void-infected vessels. With respect, General, my people have faced threats you can't imagine. Such as... Krex's mandibles clicked in that familiar dismissive way. Before June could respond, Han spoke up. Each other, sir. Both June and Krex turned to look at the veteran. Explain, Krex demanded. Han set down his fork. Before we met alien life, humans spent thousands of years fighting other humans. We've been at war with ourselves for most of, our history. Krex seemed unimpressed. Many species experience civil conflicts. Not like humans, Han said. Our world wars killed millions. Our weapons could destroy entire cities. We brought ourselves to the edge of extinction more than once. And this is something you're proud of? Krex asked, confusion in his voice. No, Han replied. But it shaped us. It made us what we are. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the mess hall. Attention all crew, came Commander Park's voice over the speakers. Void activity detected in Sector 7. All combat teams report to your stations. This is not a drill. June stood quickly. We'll continue this discussion later, General. As they hurried from the mess hall, June noticed that Han moved with surprising speed despite his artificial leg. In the command center, screens showed a small transport ship drifting near an asteroid field. The ship's identification signal identified it as a mining vessel from a neutral species. Life signs? June asked as he entered. Unclear, Commander Park replied. Their systems are mostly offline, but we're detecting movement inside. General Krex arrived with his senior officers. The energy pattern matches void infection. We should destroy the vessel immediately. There might be survivors, June objected. We should at least try to investigate. Investigation puts our people at risk, Krex argued. The void entities can spread rapidly. Lieutenant Min brought up sensor data on the main screen. The ship's containment protocols appear to be partially functioning. That might explain why the infection hasn't completely taken over. June looked at the drifting ship on the screen. We need to know how the void entities are spreading. This is our chance to gather valuable information. After a tense debate, they decided to send a mixed team to investigate the mining vessel. 4 Talons and 4 humans would board the ship, assess the situation, and either rescue survivors or gather data before destroying the vessel. In the preparation room, soldiers put on protective suits designed to resist void influence. The human suits were bulkier than the sleek Talon versions, with extra layers of mental shielding technology. As they prepared, a Talon soldier named Zarv approached Sergeant Han, who was checking his weapon. You should stay behind, old one, Zarv said. This mission requires speed and strength. Han continued his weapon check without looking up. I was fighting when you were still in your hatching pool, young one. Fighting other weak humans, Zarv replied. The void is different. It feeds on fear and mental weakness. Humans are emotional creatures. You will be vulnerable. Han finally looked up, meeting the Talon's 4 eyes with his 2. You might be surprised what humans can withstand, Zarv. Captain June approached the group. Final checks, everyone. Remember, we go in together, we come out together. No heroes, no risks. As the team moved toward the shuttle that would take them to the mining vessel, June found himself walking beside Sergeant Han. Are you sure about this mission, Sergeant? He asked quietly. No one would think less of you for sitting this one out. Han checked the seal on his helmet. The Talons need to learn something about humans, Captain. Might as well be today. The shuttle's engines powered up, and the small craft detached from the Dauntless. As they approached the dark, silent mining vessel, everyone grew quiet, preparing themselves for what might be waiting inside. Through the shuttle's window, June could see the mining ship's hull. Strange dark patches covered parts of the metal, like shadows that moved when you weren't looking directly at them. Remember your training, General Krex's voice came through their communication devices. The void entities attack the mind first. Stay focused. Stay together. The shuttle docked with the mining vessel with a soft thud. As the airlock cycled open, June looked at his team, humans and Talons about to face an enemy that neither fully understood. Ready? He asked. Sergeant Han nodded, a strange calmness in his eyes that June hadn't noticed before. Always ready, Captain. The worst enemy is always the one inside your own head. The Talons exchanged confused glances, not understanding Han's words, but soon, very soon, they would learn exactly what the old veteran meant. The airlock door opened with a hiss. Captain June Kim led the mixed team of humans and Talons into the darkened mining vessel. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the empty corridor. Life support is functioning, Lieutenant Min reported, checking her scanner. Air is breathable, but I recommend keeping helmets on. Zarv, the Talon soldier who had mocked Sergeant Han earlier, scoffed. Our natural filters can handle any airborne toxins. Humans need to hide behind technology. Han said nothing, his eyes scanning the shadows carefully. Stay focused, June ordered. We're here to find survivors and gather information, not compare. Biological advantages. The team moved deeper into the ship. The walls were covered with strange dark patches that seemed to shift when not directly observed. The air felt heavy, as if something unseen was pressing against them. Scanner shows. Movement 2 decks up, Min said. Could be survivors. Or void entities. Added Talon Officer Varn. Be prepared for either. They found the first body near the engine room. It was a Naxian, one of the reptilian species known for their mining operations. The body lay twisted. On the floor, its scales turned a sickly gray color. Varn knelt to examine it. No physical wounds, he said. But the brain would have been affected first. That's how the void works. As they continued their search, the team found more bodies. Some showed signs of fighting, with broken claws and torn uniforms. Others simply looked like they had fallen asleep and never woken up. The void entities don't always kill, Varn explained as they moved through a dormitory section. Sometimes they take control, turning victims into puppets that help spread the infection. Like a virus that can think, Min said. Precisely, a virus that targets the mind before the body. When they reached the ship's bridge, they found signs of a last stand. Several Naxian crew members had barricaded the doors, but something had broken through. June approached the captain's chair. A Naxian in a senior officer's uniform sat there, eyes open but unseeing. Dark veins spread across the reptilian skin. Captain's log is still accessible, June said, examining the console. Downloading now. Suddenly, the ship's emergency lights flickered. Darkness swept through the bridge for a moment before the lights returned, dimmer than before. Power fluctuation, Min reported. The ship's systems are failing. We should leave, said Zarv, his four hands tightening on his weapon. We have seen enough. Not yet, June replied. The download is still in progress. We need this data to understand how the infection spread. A loud banging sound echoed from a corridor outside the bridge. Then another, closer this time. Movement, Han said quietly, raising his rifle. Multiple contacts. The door to the bridge slid open. In the corridor stood 3 Naxian miners, but they were changed. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural purple light, and their movements were jerky, as if they were puppets controlled by unseen strings. Void puppets, Varn warned. Don't let them touch you. The infected Naxians charged forward. The Talon soldiers met them with impressive force, their forearms allowing them to both fight and defend at the same time. The humans provided covering. Fire from behind. One of the Naxians broke through, lunging toward Sergeant Han. The old veteran sidestepped with surprising agility and fired a pulse that knocked the infected miner back. Sergeant, watch out! June called as another void puppet came at Han from behind. Before Han could turn, a wave of dark energy pulsed from the infected Naxian. It swept across the bridge like a silent explosion. The effect on the Tylons was immediate and shocking. Varn dropped to his knees, his 4 eyes wide with terror. Zarv curled into a ball, all 4 arms wrapped around himself in a protective gesture. The other 2 Talon soldiers froze in place, trembling violently. But the humans remained, standing. What is happening? Varn gasped, struggling to rise. My mind can't focus. Void psychic attack, Han explained calmly as he shot the Naxian that had released the energy wave. They're trying to overwhelm our brains with fear. June helped. Varn to his feet. The download is complete. We need to leave now. How are you still functioning? Zarv asked, his voice shaking. The fear, and it's too much. Later, Han said. First, we get out of here. The return to the airlock was difficult. The human members of the team had to half-carry their Talon, companions who were still struggling against the Void's mental assault. More infected Naxians appeared, but the humans fought them off efficiently. When they finally reached their shuttle and detached from the mining vessel, June sent the signal to the Dauntless. Moments later, a targeted energy beam from the human ship struck the mining vessel, destroying it completely. Back aboard the Dauntless, the medical team examined both humans and Talons. The aliens were still suffering from the after-effects of the Void attack, their advanced nervous systems overwhelmed by the psychic assault. In the debriefing room, General Krex paced back and forth. His movements were stiff, showing that he too had been affected by the attack even though he had remained on the Dauntless. I don't understand, he said, frustration clear in his voice. My best warriors were incapacitated, yet the humans remained functional. How is this possible? All eyes turned to Sergeant Han, who sat quietly at the end of the table. The void feeds on fear, Han explained. It uses our own minds against us. I know that, Krex snapped. But Talons have superior mental discipline. Our brains are more complex, more evolved. Han smiled slightly. Complex isn't always better, General. Sometimes it just means more ways to fail. Explain, Krex demanded. Han looked around the room at the gathered officers, both human and Talon. Then he slowly rolled up his sleeve, revealing his prosthetic arm. I lost this in Tehran, he said. Lost my original eyes in Lagos. Got my spine. Replaced after Mexico City. His gaze swept the assembled aliens. And I'm considered one of the lucky ones. The room was completely silent now. You mock our weakness, Han continued. But humans don't have your natural armor or strength because we never needed it. We built weapons instead. You evolved redundant organs. We invented medicine that could regrow them. You have 4 arms. We created machines that could do the work of 100. He stood up, his artificial leg whirring softly. But the most important difference between us isn't physical. It's mental. Han walked to the center of the room, where a holographic display showed the destroyed mining vessel. The void attacks using fear and horror, he said. It overwhelms the mind with terror until it can take control. To you, this is a new and unimaginable threat. He turned to face the Talons directly. To humans, it's just Tuesday. Krex's mandibles clicked in confusion. What do you mean? I mean, Han said, that humans have been practicing for this enemy our entire history. Do you know how long humans fought each other before we ever met another species? The Talons exchanged glances. Thousands of years, Han continued. We've been killing each other since we figured out how to sharpen sticks. We've invented and perfected more ways to destroy ourselves than you can imagine. Captain June watched as understanding slowly dawned on the Talons' faces. From birth, human children are exposed to concepts of death, war, and horror, Han explained. Our entertainment includes stories designed to frighten us. Our history lessons are filled with atrocities. By the time a human reaches adulthood, they've imagined their own death in 100 different ways. That's disturbing, Varn said, still looking shaken from the encounter. Yes, Han agreed. It is, but it also means that when the void tries to frighten us, tries to show us horrors beyond imagination, he shrugged. We've seen worse. Sometimes in our own history books. Sometimes in our own mirrors. The room fell silent again as the Talons processed this information. You're saying, Krex finally spoke, that humans are resistant to the void's mental attacks because you're used to horror? Not just used to it, Han corrected. Trained in it. Inoculated against it. Every war movie, every scary story, every historical account of genocide or war, they all prepared us for this moment. June stepped forward. What Sergeant Han is saying, General, is that humans may not have your physical advantages, but we have psychological resilience that your species never needed to develop. As the meeting ended, the mood had shifted noticeably. The Talon soldiers looked at their human counterparts with new eyes, reassessing what they had dismissed as weakness. In the corridor outside, Lieutenant Min caught up with Sergeant Han. That was quite a speech, she said. I've never thought about our history that way. Han nodded. Most don't. We see our violent past as something to overcome, something to be ashamed of. He looked toward the window, where stars streaked by, as the ship moved. Maybe it is, but it also shaped us into something unique in this galaxy. Something surprisingly well-suited to face the darkness out there. Because we've already faced the darkness within, Min said, understanding now. Exactly, Lieutenant, exactly. 2 days after the mission to the mining vessel, the atmosphere on the Dauntless had changed. The Talon soldiers no longer openly mocked their human counterparts. Instead, they watched the humans with curious eyes, as if seeing them for the first time. Captain June Kim stood on the bridge, reviewing reports from other ships patrolling the border of the infected zone. The void plague was spreading faster than expected, with 3 new outbreaks reported in the last week alone. Lieutenant, Min approached with a data tablet, Sir, General Krex is requesting a meeting with you and Sergeant Han. June raised an eyebrow. Both of us? That's unusual. Yes, sir. He specifically asked for Sergeant Han to be present. June found this interesting. Since Han's speech about human history, the Talon general had been quiet, spending hours in the ship's database reading about Earth's past. Tell him we'll meet in conference room 2 in 15 minutes. When June and Han arrived at the conference room, they found not only General Krex, but also 5 other senior Talon officers. They all stood as the humans entered. Captain Kim, Sergeant Han, Krex said, gesturing to the empty seats. Thank you for coming. Once everyone was seated, Krex activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a map of the infected zone, with red markers indicating confirmed void outbreaks. The situation is worse than we initially believed, Krex began. The void entities are not just spreading. They are evolving, learning from each new species they infect. June studied the map. We need to adjust our strategy. Precisely, Krex agreed. But before we do that, my officers and I have questions. He turned his 4 eyes toward Sergeant Han. About humans. Han nodded, seemingly unsurprised. You said that humans have been preparing for this enemy your entire history, Krex continued. I have been studying your planet's past, and I find it difficult to comprehend. Which part? Han asked. All of it, one of the other Talon officers said. Your world wars, your Cold War with its threat of mutual destruction, your countless smaller conflicts. How did your species survive this? Han leaned forward. We adapted. Each conflict taught us something new about ourselves, about our limits, about our resilience. But the cost, another Talon said. The millions dead, the destruction. Yes, Han agreed quietly. The cost was terrible. We're not proud of our violent past, but we can't deny that it shaped us. Krex brought up new images on the display, scenes from human history. Soldiers in trenches during World War I, the ruins of cities after World War II. Footage from more recent conflicts. My species had one civil conflict in our entire history, Krex said. It lasted 3 years and claimed 10,000 lives. We still teach it as the greatest catastrophe we ever faced. He gestured at the images floating above the table. Yet humans endured hundreds of such conflicts and still reached the stars. We're stubborn that way, June said with a small smile. It's more than stubbornness, Krex replied. It's something we don't have. And what's that? Han asked. The ability to function in the face of horror, Krex said. To keep moving forward despite fear, despite trauma, despite seeing the worst that thinking beings can do to each other. The room fell silent for a moment. The void entities attack the mind, Krex continued. They use fear and horror as weapons. My warriors were trained to resist mental attacks, but nothing in our history prepared us for what we experienced on that mining vessel. He looked directly at Han. Nothing in our entertainment either. Han nodded in understanding. Human entertainment often explores our darkest fears. Horror stories, war films, even games that simulate disaster or conflict. We voluntarily expose ourselves to fictional horrors. Why? Asked one of the Talon officers, genuine confusion in her voice. Partly to process our fears in a safe environment, Han explained. Partly to prepare ourselves for the worst, even if only subconsciously. June watched as the Talons tried to grasp this concept. Their civilization had evolved differently, with fewer conflicts and a more stable social structure. They had never needed to develop the psychological defenses that humans took for granted. The ship's alarm suddenly blared, interrupting their discussion. Commander Park's voice came over the speakers. Captain Kim, General Krex, we've detected a large vessel approaching. It's not responding to hails and shows signs of void infection. On our way, June responded, standing quickly. On the bridge, the main screen showed a massive cargo ship drifting toward them. Dark patches covered large sections of its hull, and its running lights flickered erratically. Scan complete, Officer Lee reported. It's the Stellar Horizon, A Galedian transport. Life support is still functioning, but communications are down. We're detecting multiple life signs, but their patterns are unusual. Infected, Krek said grimly. The void has taken the crew. June studied the ship's profile. The Stellar. Horizon carries a crew of over 200. If they're all infected, this could be the largest concentration of void entities we've encountered. Krex finished. We should destroy it immediately. Lieutenant Min spoke up. Captain, the Stellar Horizons database might contain valuable information about how the infection spreads through large populations. If we could recover that data. June looked at Krex. What do you think, General? Is it worth the risk? Krex was silent for a moment, his 4 eyes fixed on the screen. Normally I would say no, but given what we've learned about human resilience. He turned to June. I believe a joint team might succeed where either of our species alone would fail. Are you suggesting what I think you are? June asked. Yes, Krex said. A mission to board the Stellar Horizon, recover its data, and then destroy it. But this time we'll use our understanding of our different strengths. Within an hour, a mixed team of humans and Talons had assembled in the shuttle bay. This time, however, the team structure was different. The humans would take the lead in areas requiring direct contact with void entities, while the Talons would provide physical protection and technical support. As they prepared to board their shuttle, General Krex addressed the team. Remember your training and your new protocols. The void entities target neural systems. Your armor will protect against physical damage, but mental resistance is key. He turned to the human members of the team. We have designed new mental shielding based on what we've learned about human psychological resistance. It should help our warriors withstand the void's influence longer. Sergeant Han checked his weapon. And if the shielding fails? Then we rely on your species' natural ability to face horror, Krex admitted. Something I never thought I would say. As the shuttle departed the Dauntless, June looked at his mixed team. Humans and Talons, working together with a new understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses. This mission will be dangerous, he said. The Stellar Horizon is much larger than the mining vessel we explored before. More places for void, entities to hide, more crew members potentially infected. We understand the risks, Captain, said Varn, the Talon officer who had once been the most dismissive of humans. But we also understand something else now. He looked at Sergeant Han with newfound respect. Sometimes what appears to be weakness can be strength in disguise. The shuttle approached the massive cargo ship, which loomed like a dark island in space. Through the viewport, they could see movement on the ship's outer hull, figures that had once been crew members, now changed by the void's influence. As they prepared to dock, Han turned to Zarv, the young Talon soldier who had mocked him earlier. Scared? Han asked. Zarv nodded, his mandibles clicking nervously. Yes, but you humans live with fear all the time, don't you? We do, Han confirmed. The trick isn't not being afraid. The trick is doing what needs to be done despite the fear. The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and the team prepared to enter the infected ship. What waited inside would test both species to their limits. But for the first time since they had begun working together, both humans and Talons felt they might actually have a chance against the darkness that threatened them all. The airlock to the Stellar Horizon opened with a hiss. Captain June Kim led the mixed team of humans and Talons into the darkened cargo ship. This vessel was much larger than the mining ship they had explored before, with long corridors and multiple decks. Main power is down, Lieutenant Min reported, checking her scanner. Emergency systems only. Sergeant Han moved forward cautiously, his weapon ready. Stay alert. In a ship this size, we could encounter dozens of infected crew members. The Talons formed a protective formation around the humans. It was a complete reversal of their earlier missions, where the Talons had taken the lead and treated humans as backup. We'll head to the bridge first, June said, then to the main computer core. We need that data on how the void spread through the ship. As they moved deeper into the vessel, they began to see signs of the infection. Dark patches covered the walls and floors, pulsing slightly as if alive. The air felt thick and heavy. Life signs ahead, Min warned. Multiple contacts, moving erratically. They rounded a corner and saw them. A group of Galedians, their tall, slender bodies now twisted by the void's influence. Their normally silver skin had turned a sickly gray, and their eyes glowed with purple light. "Void puppets," Varn said. "At least 10 of them." Before anyone could react, a wave of dark energy pulsed from the infected crew members. It washed over the team like a silent explosion. The Talons stiffened, their new mental shields glowing, as they fought against the psychic assault. 2 of them fell to their knees, but the others remained standing, protected by the technology based on human psychological patterns. The humans felt the attack too, a cold pressure in their minds, trying to fill their thoughts with terror and despair, but they pushed through it, their lifelong exposure to horror and fear giving them a natural resistance. "Now!" June shouted. The team opened fire on the void puppets. The coordinated attack quickly overwhelmed the infected crew members, who fell without a sound. "The new shields worked for most of us," Zarv said, helping one of his fallen comrades to his feet. "Not perfectly, but better than before." Han nodded. "Progress. Let's keep moving." They fought their way through the ship deck by deck. The Talons provided physical strength and combat abilities, while the humans guided them through the waves of fear projected by the void entities. When they reached the bridge, they found it heavily infected. Dark energy swirled around the captain's chair, where a Galedian sat motionless, completely consumed by the void. "That's not a puppet anymore," Han said quietly. "That's something worse." As if hearing his words, the infected captain turned. Its face had lost all Galedian features, becoming a mask of shifting darkness. "Your minds are strong," it said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "But we are stronger. We are fear itself. We are the darkness in every species." The creature rose from the chair, dark energy crackling around it. "We have consumed 1,000 worlds," it continued. "Older and stronger species than yours. What makes you think you can resist us?" June stepped forward. "Because we've faced our own darkness. We've seen the worst of ourselves and survived." The void creature laughed, a sound that sent chills through everyone present. "Your species is young. You know nothing of true horror." "Maybe not," Sergeant Han said, moving to stand beside June. "But we've had plenty of practice with the homegrown variety." The creature attacked without warning, sending a massive wave of psychic energy toward them. This time, even the humans staggered under the assault. Images of death and destruction filled their minds, not just any horrors, but scenes pulled from human history itself. "It's using our own past against us," Han gasped. "The world wars, the genocides, all of it." The Tylons were hit even harder, their minds unprepared for the horrific images of human conflict. Several fell immediately, overwhelmed by the sudden exposure to humanity's darkest moments, but Han stood firm. "You think showing us our own history will break us?" he called to the creature. "We live with this knowledge every day. We teach it to our children. We study it to avoid repeating it." He raised his weapon. "And most importantly, we learn from it." Han fired, the shot striking the creature directly. It shrieked, a sound that seemed to come from beyond normal space. "Now, together," June ordered. The humans and remaining Talons fired in unison. The combined attack drove the void creature back, its form beginning to break apart under the assault. "The data," June reminded them. "We need to access the ship's computer." Min rushed to a console while the others kept the creature at bay. "Downloading now," she reported. "Ship's logs, crew medical records, everything." The void creature seemed to sense what they were doing. It gathered its strength for one final attack, sending the most powerful wave of fear yet. But this time, something unexpected happened. Sergeant Han stepped directly into the path of the attack, taking the full force of it. Instead of falling, he walked forward, step by steady step toward the creature. "I've seen worse," Han said, his voice calm despite the strain on his face. "I've lived through worse. We all have." The creature recoiled, seeming confused by Han's resistance. "That's humanity's gift," Han continued, still advancing. "And our curse. We can look into the abyss without flinching because we've carried a piece of it with us all along." With those words, Han fired one final shot. The creature dissolved into swirls of dark energy, then vanished completely. "Download complete," Min announced. "We have everything." Their return to the shuttle was easier, though they had to carry several Talons who were still recovering from the psychic attack. Once safely away, they watched as the Dauntless fired on the stellar horizon, destroying the infected ship completely. 1 month later, the Joint Task Force had successfully contained 3 major outbreaks of the Void Plague. The information from the stellar horizon had proved invaluable, allowing them to develop better defenses against the infection. On the observation deck of the Dauntless, Captain June found General Krex studying Earth's historical records on a large screen. "Your world wars," the Talon said without looking up. "Your species killed millions of your own kind, and then simply continued advancing." June nodded. "Not our proudest moments, but yes. My people had one civil conflict in our entire history. It nearly ended our civilization, and is still taught as the greatest catastrophe we ever faced." Krex's normally stern features had softened with something like wonder. Yet humans endured hundreds of such conflicts and still reached the stars. "We're stubborn that way," June replied. "It's more than stubbornness," Krex said, turning to face the human captain. "It's a kind of strength we never understood until now." Later, during a ceremony to commemorate their successful missions, General Krex formally addressed both crews. "When this joint task force was formed, I believed humans would be a liability," the Talon admitted to the assembled crowd. "I was wrong. The Void Plague exploits weakness, fear, and division, the very things humans have been inoculating themselves against throughout their violent history." He turned to Sergeant Han, who stood at attention despite his artificial leg. "Your physical frailties are not weaknesses as we thought. They are badges of a species that refuses to surrender even to its own nature." Krex raised his upper arms in the Talon gesture of highest respect. "The galaxy has always feared what humans might become. Now I understand that we should be grateful for what humans already are, survivors who turned their greatest flaws into their greatest strengths." As the ceremony concluded, Lieutenant Min approached June with a data tablet. "Sir, you should see this. The Talon High Command has requested human advisors for all their frontline void containment teams." June smiled. "Send them Sergeant Han's training protocols." "Already did, sir," Min replied with a grin. "I also included our historical fiction database. Apparently, Talon soldiers are now watching human horror movies. They're using them as training tools for void resistance." "Sergeant," Han limped over looking amused. "Just heard a Talon warrior quoting Sun Tzu. Never thought I'd see the day." June gazed out at the stars beyond the viewport. "Humanity has always been its own worst enemy and its own greatest teacher. Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs. Right now, a species that knows how to face the darkness because we've carried it within ourselves all along." Han nodded, his weathered face reflecting the light of distant stars. "The Talons were right about one thing," he said. "We are physically weaker than most species out here, but they were wrong about what matters in the end." "And what's that?" June asked, though he already knew the answer. "It's not the strongest who survive," Han said. "It's those who can adapt. To change, who can face the worst and still keep going." He smiled slightly. "In that department, humans have had more practice than anyone. As new joint teams prepared for their next missions against the Void, humans and Talons worked side by side, each bringing their unique strengths to the fight. And throughout the galaxy, the story began to spread of how the physically weakest species had proven to be mentally the strongest, and how humanity's violent past had unexpectedly prepared them to face the darkness between the stars. End of Alien Soldiers Mock Humans Until Their Veteran Shares a Shocking Truth.